In this fun little Photoshop tutorial, I want to show you how to use a feature called Content Aware Scaling, which is actually pretty cool Photoshop magic. And I'm going to demonstrate that with a local landscape shot, and we're going to play off the traditional look of early vintage travel posters. Believe me, it'll all make sense in a minute. So I'm going to go to File and Open. And in my chapter 10, I will go to 10.4. So I'm just going to start at the bottom and click and drag over everything, all three files. And let's just move my Paths panel back where it belongs there. All right, so here's the first file. This is typical of vintage travel posters. They had a very flat, kind of graphic look. They would have been great all drawn in Adobe Illustrator, but we're in Photoshop. So we could still mimic this kind of look. It's very simplified. It's not photographic in nature, but you still get the point across. Okay, so I like that. I like that look. What I want to do is make this a travel poster for the Aquarium of the Pacific. This third one is the shot that we want to put on our travel poster. The problem, obviously, is the fact that we have a long horizontal photo, but we have a vertical poster to fit it into. So here's what you can do. First, you can't transform a photo if it is a background layer. So I'm going to double click the word background, and we'll just call this rock, because that's the main emphasis of this photo. And now the problem is, if I wanted it to be vertical, if I simply hit Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC, and I drag the corner, it's gonna stay proportional. It's still going to be a small horizontal rectangle. So that's not working. If I start to scale something like that and I change my mind, in the upper left corner of my keyboard is my Escape key. Okay, the second thing I could try is Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC, and then hold my Shift key. I could certainly turn it into a vertical, but that is also distorting the photo. So that's not going to work either. I'll hit the Escape key. Another method that I have at my disposal is Content Aware Scaling. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see this more clearly. And with my Move tool here, I will go to Edit, Content Aware Scale. And now if I drag the corner, notice it keeps getting smaller. I don't want my photo to be smaller, but notice the ocean is kind of squeezing itself in there. Okay, that's not working because I don't want my photo to be smaller. So again, in the upper left corner of my keyboard, I hit my Escape key. So the trick to try is Edit, Content Aware Scale, and you hold your Shift key. Watch the water on the right side of the rock. I'm sorry, the left side. I'm pushing from the right. Watch the water on the left side. If I'm holding Shift and I push, notice I'm squeezing the water, not the rock. If I hold Shift and push from this side, you can see the water squeeze over on the other side, like that. But eventually, if I squeeze it enough, I'm going to squeeze the rock as well. None of these are actually working for me, so I'll hit my Escape key one more time. There's a really cool hidden trick with this, and it has to do with your channels panel. So here's the trick. I'm going to go up to my elliptical marquee, and I'm going to drag an ellipse around the rock. I'm essentially creating a protective barrier around this rock right there. Okay, with my channels panel showing, I'm going to take this selection, this little protective bubble that I've drawn around the rock, and I'm going to come right up here to Select Menu, Save Selection. anytime you save a selection, it will be stored on your channels as a brand new channel. So I'll just call this, let's call this Protect the Rock. As soon as I click OK, you can see it right down here at the bottom of my channels. So what I'm going to do is first turn off this selection by hitting Command D on a Mac or Control D on a PC. And now I click on the words, Protect the Rock. I made that little bubble. Okay, again, make sure this is deselected by hitting Command D on a Mac or Control D on a PC. And we don't want this bubble to have a hard edge. So I will go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I'm going to set this to about 45 or so. Just kind of a softer blur right around there. And I'll click OK. Now, on my channels panel, to look at my photo, I come back to the top, click on RGB, so I'm back on my photo. And now I go to Edit, Content Aware Scale. But before I try anything, there is a button right up here that says Protect. Right now, it's not going to protect anything because it says none. I am going to protect the rock. This little field right here is recognizing that white bubble that I drew around the rock, like a protective barrier. So now when I hold the Shift key, I can squeeze the water on the left side of the photo right there. I come over to this side, I hold Shift and I squeeze the water on the right, but I do not distort the rock. I am protecting what was in that bubble. And I like that. I'm going to hit Enter on my PC or Return on my Mac. And now the problem is I have a bunch of empty space over here and a bunch of empty space over here. I can go to Image Menu, Trim. It's going to ask me, what are you trying to trim off of this file? All the transparent areas, all the checkerboard pattern. Then it's going to ask you, trim away from what side? All of the sides. It's like an automatic crop. So there we go. Unfortunately, I don't have a vertical image. I have more of a square now. So like I've shown in the past, you can take your crop tool and extend the amount of space upward like that. Just add more workspace. So I'm going to hit Enter on my PC or Return on my Mac, but now I'm missing half of the sky. So in the olden days, maybe like 10 years ago, what you would have to do is take your clone stamp and clone more sky, and you do not want to have to do that. Because you can obviously see the sky down here is totally different than the blue sky up there. So even something simple as adding more sky used to be a nightmare. You would see people, or I would see people all the time, take their clone stamp, Option click or Alt click, and then try to paint more sky up there. And you can obviously see the problem. The colors won't match at all. So I have to go to Edit and Undo. Now the awesome thing is Edit, Content Aware Scale again. Now when I hold my Shift key, I just extend the sky. How genius is that? I love Photoshop. Photoshop magic. Hit Enter on your PC or Return on your Mac, and now we've got a beautiful vertical shot. I can take my Move tool now, drag it up to file number 2, wait a second, drop it back in, and I'll put it right down here. Remember, I got to have room to transform this, so I'm going to take my Zoom tool and kind of zoom out to the left. Switch back to my Move tool, and I'll hit Command T on a Mac or Control T on a PC, and I want to blow up that photo so it totally fills our space right there. Now I can kind of move it around, kind of center it right there. I like that. I'll hit Enter on my PC or Return on my Mac to accept the transformation. And I'm going to obviously pull that photo underneath our logo for Aquarium of the Pacific. If you want, feel free to move this. You could take this logo and drag it up here. Might look better anyway, because now it's nice and clear. It's not getting lost in all the details of the rocks. But like I showed you on file number 1, these photos have a much more graphic look to them, not a photographic look. These traditional vintage travel posters were painted in the early 1900s, 1920s, 1930s. They didn't have a bunch of photographic posters. They just cheaply hand painted them. So I want this to kind of have that look to it. I'm going to come down to the rock and maybe increase a little bit more color on this photo. It's kind of dried out, kind of dull looking. Image menu, adjustments, hue and saturation. I want to drag the saturation to the right just to intensify that a bit more right there, maybe around 30. Bring out a little more gold in the rock, definitely a little more blue in the sky. And then to give it that graphic look like we have here, I'm going to come in and try 2 different methods. The first one is image menu. And remember, I'm on the photo of the rock. Image menu, adjustments, posterize. That breaks things down into simple values. So you could see right here, if I went all the way to the left, there's 2 levels. There's 4. The more you go, the more it will look photographic until you can't even tell, except on the sky. But I don't think posterize is really doing it justice right there. Okay, I'm going to cancel that. I want to try something else to really give it that graphic look. So filter, artistic, cutout. All I can see is the sky. So way down here in the bottom left, I'm going to hit the minus and zoom out like that. Obviously, I need a little more detail than this, so I'm going to drag all these sliders back to the left. Okay, and I'll drag this slider all the way to the left. We'll just start from nothing. Now, the number of levels means the number of colors. I don't want to simplify the edges because then it's going to look like an abstract painting and then the rock won't even look like a rock. I want the number of levels, and I'm going to slowly increase that. Let go of the mouse, and let's see what 3 looks like. Let's see what 4 looks like. Getting closer. Let's see what 5 looks like. Okay, that's still looking pretty good. Let's see what 6 looks like. There we go. Get a little highlight on the rock right there. That's kind of cool. Edge fidelity, if I drag that over and let go, we'll just see what that does. Didn't do much. Yeah, didn't do much. It's really the number of levels and edge simplicity right here that can tear that apart. So if I drag it over a little more, see, now I'm starting to get these bigger blocks of color. I still get the general idea of the rock, but I'm losing some of that color of the rock. So I might want to go back with edge simplicity. Let's go back in with a 2. And let's set the number of levels back down to a 5. That looks pretty good right there. Let's see. Number of levels are 5. Let's see what edge simplicity of 3 does. That's still holding up pretty well. I'm going to go with that. 5, 3, and 1. And when I click OK, there's my posterized or cut out version of this photo. But I don't like this space right here. Okay, so here's how I can fix this. All I'm going to do is go to my brush, hold Control and Option on my Mac, and drag down to make a hard brush. Hold Control and Option on my Mac and drag to the left. That would be Control and Alt key on your PC and your right mouse button to resize. Now, when you're on your brush, if you hold your Option or Alt key, it will toggle to your eyedropper. So I can eyedrop this color of the rock, let go of my Option or Alt key, and now I'm just going to paint a little bit more of this rock right in here. Let's cover up some of these other details here. Just enough that I can get like that. I want to cover up any blank spots or blank openings in this rock. So maybe we'll cover up some of that right there. Like that. Okay, we'll take some of this and I'll just paint over these little gold sections so we have a little highlight on the top of our rock right there. But I still have this hole in the rock. So now when I come in with my magic wand, I click, I have my color. Now I don't want to make sure that I don't want to paint right along the edge of those anti-alias pixels. So whenever I'm using my magic wand, I want to remind you, going all the way back to chapter 2, your magic wand is good. It is not perfect. Select, modify, and expand. We'll just do 1 pixel. Now I take my brush, paint inside that opening right there, and I solidify the rock. Command D on my Mac or Control D on my PC, and now I got a nice solid rock with that more contrasted look right there for this nice vintage poster aquarium of the Pacific. Okay, so I'm going to try one more thing. I really don't like this up here. So again, I'm going to go to the rock and I'm going to go in with, let's go to the rock layer. I'm going to go to my brush. I'll use my keyboard to make my brush a little bigger. Option key on a Mac or Alt key on a PC. I'm going to click. Then when I let go of the keyboard, I can paint over that area. And now what I want to do, since my sky is all this pretty much flat blue, I want to go in with my magic wand again. Click on the sky. Great. Now what I want to do is make it anything other than flat. So right here, I'm going to hit D for default colors. I'm going to click on the foreground color and pick a shade of darker blue right up here. Kind of like that. I'll click OK. For the background color, the white tucked underneath, I'll click on that. And I'll click on the light blue of the sky. When I click OK, I want to go from darker blue to lighter blue. Maybe even click that dark blue and go even a little bit darker. And now what I'm going to do, just to be experimental, I don't want to paint on this layer. I'm going to make a brand new blank layer. We'll just call this New Sky. Right above your type tool are your toning tools. Right above those is your gradient tool. And even though I have chosen blue to light blue, it's giving me black and white. So I'm going to click this little pop-up and pick blue to light blue. I click down below, get that little pop-up off my screen. Now I start at the top and I click and drag down. like that. I like that. That transition of color. That looks cool. Okay, there we go. Now let's try that cutout filter again on our brand new sky. Filter, artistic, cutout, and well, it's saying a smart out. Let's convert it. What the heck? Look what that did. Now it breaks up those values of the gradient. So if I go number of levels, more or less, let's see what we get. Let's go more values. Edge simplicity, edge fidelity, Okay, this is what's fun about playing with Photoshop. That just looked like a series of blinds, and I really didn't like that. So half the time Photoshop is trying things out, finding out what the heck were you thinking, and then throwing it away. That's why you always put them on a brand new layer. So let's try one more. I'm going to go to my magic wand. I'm on the layer for the rock, and I'm going to click. Again, I'm going to hit D for default colors. Now instead of black and white, I'm going to take my eyedropper and pick light blue to white. Okay, on the same layer, well, Photoshop is an experiment, so you don't want to paint because you might not like it. Create a brand new layer. We'll just call this new sky. Just as a reminder, hey, you screwed up the first time. Now I go to filter, render, clouds. There we go. Command D on a Mac or Control D on a PC. Now let's try that filter again. Filter, artistic, cutout. I'll hit the minus and zoom out right there. Now I can add more levels right there. I'll add edge simplicity to the left so I get a few more details there. Edge fidelity doesn't really do much, but I'll go 8, 0, and 1. And now we get something a little more interesting right there. Okay, there we go. Kind of mimicking that graphic look of a travel poster instead of that photographic look. Here's before, and there's after. And that's the beauty of creating another layer, because as I experiment more and more, I realize how much I don't like this sky. Sorry, I'm being so indecisive, but that's why you create layers. That's why you play with Photoshop. I've realized now I'm not going in the right direction. I'm going to throw away our new sky, and I'm going to leave it here because I have room for a tagline, come explore the Pacific, or it's always better in Long Beach, or whatever you want to do. But now I have a nice look. So here's the last thing I wanted to show you. We have Aquarium of the Pacific in blue on a blue background. It's going to be a little harder to read. If I turn these bottom two layers off, you can see this whole logo is on a transparent layer. So what I can do is go up to the layer with the logo, and I click the button next to the word lock. That means I will never be able to add paint anywhere I see the checkerboard pattern. The only thing I can paint is what already exists on this layer. So just to show you that, if I turn on all my layers, when I'm on the logo, I'm going to unlock that for a minute, hit D for default colors, X to switch to white, and on a Mac, I hold my Option key and hit the big delete. It will fill the entire layer with white. I obviously didn't want to do that, so I'll go to Edit, Undo. Now I take this top layer right next to the word lock, lock the transparent parts of that layer, and I try it again. On a Mac, Option and Delete. On a PC, that will be Alt and Backspace, and I can instantly update the look of that logo. Nice and bright, very clear and legible. Even from a distance, people will be able to read it better, and there we go. My main goal is to encourage you to explore, to experiment, to screw up, because that's what layers are for. You just saw me do it, but we end up with a good result if you start to play with the program. So I don't need photo number 3. We'll get rid of that. Don't need to save it. I don't need photo number 1. Let's get rid of that. Now I've got my little travel poster. File menu, save a copy, and we'll call this last name, first name, travel poster. Of course. I'll save it on my desktop, always as a JPEG, and always high quality or 8. And that's the way you do it. That's the way you experiment and you get those nice little surprises that sometimes work and sometimes don't. And when they don't, it leads you in all new design directions. So keep that in mind. Don't get frustrated. Experiment, play with it, have fun. And I look forward to seeing what you come up with. If you got a better idea for this one, do it. Let me see what you can come up with. I'll see you next time.